This is my favourite part of the house in terms of houseplants. This is where I have kind of my main display in the house. Loads and loads of houseplants here. So just starting off, got this green orange plant. Recently bought this online. Unfortunately, some of the leaves are starting to turn black. Not really sure why. Might be too much sun, so I might have to move it away from this spot. This is an east-facing window, so it does get morning sun. It's not that harsh though. So I'm not really sure why this is continuing to turn black, even the new leaves that sprout through the middle. Got a nice Dieffenbachia there, really nice plant. Dieffenbachia is always really cheap. I think that was £8 from Homebase, a bargain. I bought 2 of them, so there's another variety there. Really interesting plants. This one I'm really happy with. This is my Alocasia Black Velvet that I got in my recent Dobby's shopping trip video. And this was reduced because they hadn't watered it for a while, so it was kind of flopping over. One of the leaves was dying. I've given it a water, put it in this spot, and it's responding really well. Can't yet see any new growth developing, but I'm sure that will come. Got my peace lily that I did a recent video on, diagnosing why it was turning yellow, so I revamped that and I put it into this terracotta pot, and it's much happier now. All the leaves are green. I've got this Calathea zebrina, really nice plant, but really fussy. So this is another one that I've rehabbed. I had a larger plant of this and I kind of divided it into smaller plants, and it's looking a bit dry actually. I think I need to give it some water, but no crispy edges at the moment, so that's good to see. Fresh growth has been occurring. I've got a nice fiddle leaf fig, a smaller one, got that from Lidl. I think that was £6 including the pot, so a real bargain that one. Got some cuttings of my Pothos Enjoy. So this is a bit of an experiment because I'm, for the first time, putting the plant in perlite only, seeing how it responds, seeing whether I can grow it just in perlite rather than soil. Hopefully get rid of some fungus gnats as well in the process. Seems to be responding quite well with these cuttings. And then I've got a nice Chinese money plant, quite a full plant this one, looking really quite nice. Lots of babies in the soil. Just looking at it, looks a bit dry, so I think I do need to give it some water. And that actually flowered for the first time. I've never seen a Chinese money plant flower before, but this one did flower. I've got a few in my house. This was the only one that did flower. I think it must like the morning sun that it gets in this spot. So that's really good. And then, back here, this is my Ficus elastica. This plant was so high and it was leaning over. So I did a video on cutting it back, and it's developing a new node there with new leaves. So that's responding well. Ficus elastica Tineki, that's a cutting I took from this mother plant here last year. I took quite a few, I think I took about 5 or 6, and they've all grown out. I've sold a couple of them on Facebook. This one I've kept. I cut back the main stem there for it to branch out, and it has. It's branched out into 2 stems, so that's a successful plant. Feels very light, so I think I need to give it a water. I've not watered for about a week and a half, so I think I do need to go around and probe with the moisture meter and just give them all a good water. This plant I really like the shape of this, jade plants. And the leaves feel nice and firm and thick, so that's good. Not underwatering it or overwatering it. I just really love the shape of the plant, the structure. Got a nice thick trunk, got some babies developing at the base. Really happy with that plant, looks nice in my yellow pot. This is a purple Pelida. The mother plant is actually down there, so I took 2 cuttings, this one and that one up there hanging. So really easy to propagate. It's a type of Tradescantia. And then this is a tricolour. This is the mother plant. I've got another one in my living room that looks a bit healthier actually. Took cuttings from this. Tradescantias don't really last that long. They tend to go a little bit brown and crispy after a while. But that one is looking okay still. This is a Monstera deliciosa cutting. This was just the node, didn't have any leaves on. It was an experiment I did to see if I could get it to grow some leaves, and it has. So these are all brand new leaves. Again, growing it just in perlite as an experiment. And then I got a baby Pothos Silver, I think it's called. I bought this online. I think I need to give this a water as well, looking a little bit droopy. This was just a tiny little baby plant. It's since put out these new leaves, so it's quite happy in that spot. A nice Hoya Lisa behind my fiddle leaf fig. Took some cuttings of this. I've got a video on that on my channel. So this has pushed out lots of new growth. The new leaves come out kind of pinky colour, really nice plant. Again, feels a little bit limp, so I do need to give it some water. And then at the back here, a type of Tradescantia, green and white leaves. That's a really nice plant. Again, I bought that online as a little baby plant. And then right at the back here, I've got this is a succulent, a blue moonstone, I think it's called. Got that from IKEA. Really love the thick blue leaves on that. I think it looks really attractive. This is a Peperomia nivalis. It's got some flowering at the top. This is a type of succulent, Peperomia. So you don't want to give it too much water, otherwise it will start to go mushy. And then at the back here, I've got a Ficus benjamina. So this one I'm rehabbing a little bit because it's started to lose a lot of leaves. I think I had it in too dark a spot, lost a lot of leaves. So I cut it back, rehabbing it, and you can see it's producing new leaves, new stems. So I'm kind of hoping that I'm gonna keep pruning it back, get a thicker trunk, and hopefully it will grow a little bit taller. And then at the back there, I've got a couple of cacti that was given to me as a gift, some cuttings. So I planted these, rooted them, and I think they've got roots. They feel like they're firmly in there. I've had it in here a couple of months, so I think they've developed roots. They look nice and green. They've got a little bit bigger as well, so that seems to be growing quite nicely. So on this little shelving unit here, I've got a couple of begonias, look really nice, really deep purple leaves on that one, multicolored on that one. Recently upbotted that into a terracotta pot because the leaves were going a little bit yellow and brown, so it was root bound in its pot, and it's much happier in that pot now. Tradescantia teddy bear vine, propagating that plant was one of my first videos on the channel. Check out that video if you're interested. It's got some nice purple little flowers that will produce all summer long, so that's really good. This is a cutting of a Peperomia angulata, loads and loads of flowers. Whenever a Peperomia has these flowers at the top, that's a telltale sign that the plant is really happy. So it's happy in that spot. I've got a type of Hoya that I bought from IKEA, and this spreads all over the place. It's got a stem that's down there that I propagated from, but there's a stem there that's climbing all the way around, and it just wraps around all these plants, and it's everywhere. And it did flower early spring, and that was nice to see. Nice delicate white pinkish flowers. And then this one I'm really happy with. This is my lipstick plant. I don't know the proper kind of scientific name for it, but I moved it to this spot. Last year it didn't flower. This year I moved it to this spot, get some morning sun, and it's produced loads and loads of red flowers. So it looks really, really good. Really happy in that spot now. This one is a little bit ropey. This is a Tradescantia Nanook, and as you can see, some of the leaves on this are turning brown and crispy. It's what Tradescantias tend to do, unfortunately, but this one seems to have a real chronic case of brown leaf for some reason, not really sure why. This is a really nice plant, just sat down here. It's a philodendron lemon and lime, and I'm trying to get it to climb up this Hoya to hopefully give it some bigger leaves as it climbs up, and I think they're starting to get a little bit bigger. So they're smaller down there at the bottom, but as they go higher and higher, they get bigger and bigger. Down here is a really nice plant I'm really happy with. I got this on my first Dobby's shopping trip video. This is a pickle plant, Delasperma echinatum is the proper name for it. And this is a really unfussy plant, just sits there and does its thing. I had no issues with it whatsoever. At the back, I've got my terrarium. This has grown on quite a lot, so I've got a video on how I created this on the channel, so check that out. And I did propagations of some Fitonias and some Peperonia Santorini in here. I laid with perlite soil and bits of driftwood and stuff like that. And this is all rooted and growing out very nicely. Likes that spot. Could probably do with a water maybe. Got some more propagations at the back. I've got another purple Pelida. So that's the mother plant that I took the cutting up there and the cutting down there. So very easy to propagate. And then down here is my aglaonema. First aglaonema I ever bought. Bought it in my IKEA shopping trip video. I think that was my first one on the channel. Really nice plant, really easy to grow as well. It's pushing out lots of new growth, so that's good to see. And then down here is the mother plant of my Ficus elastica teneki. Don't know why, but a couple of the lower leaves are going crispy and brown. Not sure whether that's just what the plant does. If you know, let me know in the comments, guys. So it's got a new stem at the bottom there. I did cut it back there to get it to, try and get it to branch out in 2 branches, but it only branched out into 1 and 1 lower down at the bottom. So not sure what the plan is with this plant. Maybe cut it back again, see if it will branch out into 2 branches this time. So there's just a few plants up on these shelves that we've got up here. This is the mother plant of the Pothos Devil's Ivy. So it's a green plant with very subtle yellow variegation in it. So it's in probably a too small a pot now. I've had this a couple of years and I'm trying to get it to grow along the picture out, that end and that end. So I think that'll look really nice. So I might need to up pot that before it grows any bigger, otherwise it'd be a challenge to, when it grows too big and too long, it'd be a challenge for me to up pot it. This is a type of peperomia, I believe. Can't remember the name of it, but it's growing a little bit out of control. It's a little bit crispy at the top. Not sure it's getting enough light at the top of the plant. Getting lots of light here. Probably needs a water as well, but just grows longer and longer every day. It's an example of me not watering my plants. This is another begonia next to another begonia. They look really nice when they're looking healthy. This one tends to be quite thirsty. So the first sign of thirst, it tends to do this, and then when you give it some water, which I just had before this video, it tends to bounce right back and look much nicer than what it does now. So waiting for that to happen. As you can see, there's these Hoya stems just growing all the way through these plants. There's one there. So these look really nice there. I really like these pots as well. So that's that kind of area there. So this is the fireplace to my dining room. So I've got some plants on the mantle here, and I've got 3 plants on the hearth of the fireplace. So Monstera adansonii, this is the mother plant that I bought about 1.5 years ago, I think. Was looking a little bit ropey during the winter. Some of the leaves were coming out small and deformed, but since the spring and summer, much healthier, bigger leaves, so that's good to see. Syngonium pink, really nice plants, really interesting. One of the nice varieties of Syngonium, no issues with that. This is an obtusifolia peperomia, variegated. So very happy in that spot on my windowsill. This is a cutting of my Tradescantia teddy bear vine. As you can see, really rapid grower. So I think I've got 3 or 4 of those plants dotted around the house. This is a type of a Syngonium, this is Syngonium red arrow, I believe. This was a cutting I took from the mother plant, which I've still got, but the mother plant unfortunately lost its way. It was hanging up above my window there, but maybe giving it too much light and it kind of suffered. I've taken some propagations from it, hopefully they're rooting. But this is a cutting that I took from last year. It looks really healthy in this spot where it doesn't get as much direct sun. Doesn't get any direct sun, in fact. So that's looking good. Calafea. Don't have many calafeas in my home because they are such fussy plants, but this is a little Macona, I believe it's called. Some of the leaves are a little bit crispy, as they always are with calafeas. Snake plant, variegated, yellow leaves on the outside. Really love this plant, really easy to care for. Just give it a water probably once every 3 weeks, I guess. That's what I tend to do during the summer. And it just sits there and does its thing. Really sculptural plant. Over here is a Dracaena, kind of your classic Dracaena, quite large. 3 new stems, it looks like it's pushing out there. Peace lily, that's flowering at the moment, so that's good to see. People tend to buy a peace lily in the shops and it's got lots of white flowers. They take it home, the flowers die back, and it takes a long time for them to grow back, get new flowers, so people tend to chuck them out. But if you're patient enough with it, if you treat it right as well, give it water and fertilizer and put it in a bright spot, It will still produce flowers, not as vigorously as it did in the shops. I think the shops give it a hormone to make it push out lots of flowers, but every now and then it will push out a couple of flowers like that one has. And then over here is a ZZ plant. So that's a really, really slow growing plant. So if you want one that's easy to care for, I would recommend the ZZ plant because they don't need much water. I hardly ever water that one. They've got big, thick bulbs in the soil which store water. So if you give it too much water, it doesn't like it. It tends to go a bit limp and a little bit mushy. So I water that literally at the most once a month during the summer. And it's just happy there, just does its thing, and a really nice sculptural plant. So up on this drinks cabinet, I've got another snake plant. This is more your classic kind of snake plants. Quite a dark spot over here, but snake plants do tolerate lower light conditions. Don't need to be in full sun or bright light conditions for them to kind of survive. They won't push out as much new growth as if you put them in a brighter spot, but they will be happy-ish in a darker spot. And then this is just a Chinese money plant cutting. So I took some babies from the mother plant and then rooted successfully, and it's growing taller. Got a chopstick to hold it in place as it grows taller. The main stem doesn't seem to be too bad in this spot as well. Down here, I've got a few projects on the go. So I've got my Oxalis triangularis here, purple one, flowering at the moment. So I've got a video on how to get this out of dormancy after the winter. So basically what happens with this plant, it normally dies back, all the leaves die back at the end of summer. And then if you just leave it be, don't give it any water over the winter, and then in spring give it some water, it will send out lots of new growth, and it will be much more vigorous as well if you let it happen. And it sends out flowers as well. Got 3 glasses here, got a couple of projects that I'm working on for the channel. I'm hoping to root, I think this is starting to root, hoping to root a mango, store-bought mango, and a couple of store-bought avocados. Show you guys how you can grow a mango tree and an avocado tree from the seed, from what you buy from the supermarket. And I've got my loads of basil that I created from my how to grow an endless supply of basil video. Check out that video on the channel, guys. Really interesting video. You get tons and tons of basil with the method that I show you in that video. So they're still in their glasses. I've not been able to pot them up because I've been so busy, but they'll happily grow in the glasses of water, and they're continuing to push out new growth. And up here I have one of my favourite plants in my house. Got this in my Dobby shopping trip video, Peperomia pepper shot, just hanging from the picture rail between my kitchen and my dining room. I think it looks really interesting there. Just in my sink area in my kitchen, I've got some plants like I do pretty much everywhere in my house. I've got a nice Syngonium green here, really nice plants. Got my favourite plant, this is my Philodendron Birkin. Really love the variegation in the leaves, really interesting. I was a bit worried because some of these new leaves were coming out brown and mushy. I think I had overwatered it, but luckily I think the new white leaves are coming out and I don't see any signs of browning there. So hopefully it has recovered since I overwatered the plants. Marble Queen, Pothos Marble Queen. So this is a baby plant I got on my online shopping trip at stupidegg.co.uk. Tiny plant, it's since put out lots of new growth, so it's growing into a bigger plant. Really nice variegation, green and white variegation in the leaves, really nice plant. So I'm hoping that'll get a lot bigger and I can take some cuttings from that. And then at the back, got a little Peperomia. I think this is a Peperomia Hope, maybe. Little baby one I got. Again from stupidegg.co.uk. And then I've got a type of Echeveria here. This is probably a little bit too big for the pots. Looks like 2 plants in one. It's growing absolutely massive. Must really like that spot. Getting a little bit top heavy. So I think I'll have to up pot that. Got another type of Hoya. This one a little bit slow growing, to be honest, but quite like its compact shape. Quite a nice plant. Monstera deliciosa cuttings. So this was that was the original leaf, and these were the new leaves that have since come out. So they rooted and successfully growing out new leaves. I think that was the plant I used in my how to move water cuttings to soil video. Quite a popular one on the channel, check out that video guys. Got a cutting of my Tiana, Tradescantia Tiana, very nice plant, but it doesn't really last that long unfortunately. It tends to go leggy and the leaves do go a little bit brown. And then I've got a basil, more basil from that video that I did. And then I've got some Tradescantia tricolour cuttings in water. So I think I pruned the mother plant back. Had loads of these cuttings, didn't really know what to do with them, so I just popped them in the glass of water just to keep them alive, and they are developing roots, so really easy to propagate. So we're into the hallway of my house, quite a small little hallway I have, but I've got a couple of plants on this IKEA shoe cabinet. So this is a parlour palm. I've had this, must have had this about 4 or 5 years now. Probably is root bound, I probably do need to uppot it, but it is growing new leaves. Quite an easy plant to look after. And then I've got an umbrella plant, variegated Schefflera. Really interesting plant. Continues to push out new leaves at the top. You can start to see some baby ones coming out of the top. This was a cheap plant, as umbrellas tend to be for some reason. You get a lot of plant for the amount of money that you spend in the shops. They're always really cheap. So into my living room now. So in the corner of my living room, a bit of a dark spot, which is why I have these grow lights. So I tend to use this area on top of this IKEA cabinet as a bit of a rehabbing space, and also to kind of push on some cuttings or any projects that I've got on the go. But down here I've got another Califare alga grass, one of the more forgiving varieties of alga grass. Probably a little bit more boring than some of the other varieties you get, but they don't tend to get as much crispy leaves. So this one seems quite happy. It's also flowering at the bottom there. Flower looks like it's limping a little bit, so it does need some water, I think. But on top of this cabinet here, I've got this really nice Philodendron Brazil. So I've got a couple of videos on this plant on the channel. Got a care guide one and a how to propagate. Really interesting plant. This is the cutting of my Tradescantia tricolour. And as you can see, really full plant, really vigorous grower, really interesting plant. I really do love it. Pink leaves, pink green leaves, beige leaves. Got a video on how to propagate that. It's really, really easy to do. I've got a Tradescantia zebrina here, looking a little bit unruly. Got another money plant. I've got loads of basil at the back there, and I've got a couple more Califare zebrinas. So they're rehabbing under these lights. And I think that's it for this area. So this is the fireplace in my living room. So I've got a few plants on my fireplace mantle. This is a type of peperomia. Can't remember the exact name for it, but really interesting little compact plants. Got a spider plant here. This one I did have next to the window, and I think I did burn some of the leaves. They look a little bit faded, needs a water, so I've moved it to there, a little bit of a darker spot. This is another aglaonema, tigres, I believe. Really interesting foliage on that plant, really like it. Another snake plant. Up here, I've got a string of hearts. This never really does that well. I think it's in too dark a spot for that plant. So some of the leaves are a little bit crispy. And then what else? Down here, we've got an elephant ear, Alocasia elephant ear. So this I've struggled with in the past, with it, when it sends out new leaves from the base of the pots, they tend to go yellow, very quickly. So I think it's a lack of nutrients. A couple of people told me in the comments that it's a lack of nutrients. So I'm gonna give it lots of fertilizer this year. It's starting to push out new leaves from the base of the plant, so try and keep on top of that. I think this is my most recent purchase. This is from Lidl. £8 this was. It's a philodendron. I think it's called a new red. Dark reddish greenish leaves. Not sure why, but a couple of the leaves are a little bit limp. I did probe this with my moisture meter and it was moist, so it's not dry or wet, so I'm not sure why it's doing that. It might be a lack of light. I've since moved it to that spot to give it a bit of afternoon light. This is a west facing room, so it gets a little bit of afternoon sun. Hopefully it will perk up. And then here is another spider plant in this macrame hanger. And this is getting too much light, to be honest, too much direct sun. The leaves are fading, doesn't like it in that spot. So I do need to untangle that and get it into another position. So on the windowsill of my living room, I've got a bunch of plants behind this sofa, a little bit hidden. I am looking to get a kind of shelving unit built over this so I can raise up the plants, have some underneath as well, so I can have even more plants in my house. But what I've got on at the moment, I've got another Chinese money plant at the back here. I took loads of babies from the mother plant and propagated them, and they're all dead easy to grow out. This is another type of peperomia, variegated. Again, I bought this as a tiny money plant from my local garden centre, and it's grown out handsomely. Another type of peperomia, this is the mother plant of the peperomia angulata that you saw earlier in my dining room that I took the cuttings from. Lots of flowers, so it's very happy. Peperomia santorini, so I use this to take the cuttings from my terrarium that I did on the channel. And this is the peperomia angulata. This is the peperomia obtusifolia, losing track of all the plants I've got in my house. So I've had that in that pot a couple of years now, so it probably is a little bit root bound, probably does need potting up. Peperomia raindrop, got lots of peperomias, I do like the species of plant. Peperomia raindrop, lovely thick green glossy leaves on this plant, and for the first year that I've had it, it's producing these little delicate flowers. Not sure what's going to happen to these, first time it's happened, so it's obviously very happy. Another cutting of my Ficus elastica tsuneki. So this is just growing on and on and on. Might cut it back again like I did with the other one to get it to branch out into a bit of a tree-like structure, which is what I tend to like with my rubber tree plants. This is my Pothos Enjoy mother plants. This can be a little bit fussy. Some of the leaves are a little bit small. Might need to get it onto a moss pole, get it growing higher, get the leaves to grow bigger. Might be happier then, might not develop the brown leaves that it tends to develop on me. And this is another cutting of my Monstera deliciosa that you'll see later on upstairs in my bedroom. That's the mother plant. This is one I took last year and it's grown out. It's got 3 new leaves. No, in fact, they're all new leaves. I cut away the leaf that I used to propagate with. Just getting this aerial root. Always have to cut back these aerial roots. But it's got fenestration in the leaves, so that's good to see. So really happy plants on this windowsill. So we're into my bedroom now, and just in front of my fireplace in my bedroom, I've got this very large Monstera deliciosa. This is the mother plant that I took all those cuttings from. This plant, I've never repotted it. It's been in this same little pot for about maybe 7 years. I've had it such a long time, I've never up-potted it. I think it is desperately root bound. It does get thirsty, but the leaves still look reasonably healthy. Lots of fenestration in the leaves. It tends to face that way where the window is, the west-facing window. Up here, I've got a nice Fittonia, really interesting foliage on that. White and green leaves. Got a Tradescantia zebrina. So this is what a Tradescantia zebrina tends to look like at the beginning. Nice compact plant, full of vibrant growth, but as soon as it starts to get a bit older, it tends to get a little bit leggier, like the one downstairs on my IKEA cabinet in my living room. And then over here I've got another peace lily. So I took a division of my mother peace lily. I took loads and loads of divisions of it and created lots of plants like that one. So this spot in my bedroom is where I tend to keep most of my succulents and my cacti, because this is a west-facing window. This is the brightest spot in my house on this windowsill. My living room downstairs is also west-facing, but there's a hedge outside it, so it tends to block off quite a bit of afternoon sun. This one, there's no hedge here, so it gets lots of afternoon sun when the sun comes round in the afternoon. So all these plants really love that. They are sun-loving plants. Got a cactus here, got that from B&Q, one of my shopping trip videos. Echeveria here, you can tell this is happy because it's flowering. This is a second batch of flowers this year. Never done that before. It's got, I'm not sure whether that's a flower or more leaves developing, but super happy there. I've got a jade plant there, little small one. Recently I potted that. Feels quite light actually, so I probably do need to give that a water. jade plants do like full sun, so make sure you give them as much light as you can. Get them to push out lots of growth so they don't become leggy. Some more of those cactus cuttings that my friend gave me. Another Echeveria. This featured on one of my videos. This was my how to fix a leggy succulent, and this one has grown leggy again. So I'm gonna have to cut that back like I did in that video. Check that video out. This is a sedum. This always grows tall and leggy, so you normally have to cut that back. Type of jade, kind of wavy jade, so that likes full sun. Another jade plant, I think that was a cutting I took from my mother plant. This is a cutting of a obtusifolia. And then we've got a little selection of succulents here. I think these are 2 Echeverias and a sedum. That's looking a bit lanky, so that'll need to be cut back. Hope you enjoyed this tour of the houseplants in my house. I've got a video coming out on the channel soon of a tour of my garden, the plants I have in there, so look out for that video. If you like tours and looking at houseplants, then check out my recent trip to Dobbies. I'll link to it there. I will see you there. Thanks for watching.